This is my ET415 project. My name's Dawson. So for this project, I decided to do the innovation in concentrated solar power by David Barley, Sanjavidu, and Peter Strove. So the abstract of this paper focused on CSP, or concentrated solar power, over the last 10 years. CSP has become a mainstream method of solar power, and its continual improvements have been made in the technology. So it can be used to conserve electricity as well as produce, which really. So the methodology for this paper essentially was that in its simplest form, the sunlight can be redirected using mirrors, and then it is then focused to create heat. And at this point, heat can either be used to do a process, such as heating up water or something like that. So you can directly use this heat to perform a task, or you can use this heat to generate electricity, whether that be a turbine with steam, and then you could store the electricity at this point. So again, essentially the study looks at several different types of CSP and the technology as well as their usages in the world today. So just some quick types of CSP, and you can just kind of tell what they are by the name. So parabolic trough collectors are the oldest form of CSP, which generate 354 megawatts in California. One of their plants that they have, and that's the generation capability of it. And kind of like I mentioned, pretty much based on the first part of these names, you can tell what they are. So the parabolic trough collector is essentially just a parabola-shaped antenna, or kind of like an antenna where it's parabolic, and it just takes that solar energy and then it kind of focuses it on one point to create this heat. And then so the next one is heliostat field collectors, which are smaller and expensive, so it's a little bit newer, and they generate 10 to 12 megawatts. But again, it is one of the newer forms of CSP, so this cost could eventually go down. The linear Fresnel reflectors are similar to the PTC or the parabolic collectors, but again, they're not widely used yet. But from what I read, Spain is looking to build a large plant with to 100. So you have the parabolic dish collectors, which again is really close to the parabolic trough collectors. It provides high concentration of light, can reach up to 1500 degrees Celsius. So this is actually the most effective at essentially turning the sun's light into thermal energy. And the last two are just concentrated photovoltaic, which we're familiar with, and concentrated solar thermal electric. So yeah, in conclusion, this paper essentially was just kind of looking at CSP over the last 10 years because it is a really new concept in terms of power generation. Obviously, for many years, people have used sunlight to create heat in mirrors. I mean, that's really something that's been done almost like forever. But yeah, CSP is a great way to harness the abundance of energy that the sun provides. Obviously, the sun has an overabundance and it's readily available almost all the time. And there are many different forms of which these solar farms are utilizing around the world. So yeah, this is my part two, which is the same topic essentially, the concentrated solar power, but I wanted to specifically look at how we're using this in the U.S. So yeah, just to kind of reiterate a couple things. Concentrated solar power is the method to reflect and funnel solar power to create large amounts of heat. This heat can, again, be directly used to create electricity through steam, spin a turbine, or it can be used just to perform tasks. So currently in the U.S., between all of our CSP farms, there is 1,815 megawatts of production available. And another thing is CSP is actually very beneficial because it uses this energy, creates electricity, and it just stores it in an energy system or storage system, so it can be used day or night. Um, and here is essentially the US's um, map of the solar irradiance. So you can kind of see that in the southwest corner, Arizona, New Mexico, California, and part of Texas. This is actually where there's the most solar power hitting the land. And you'll be able to see that in these farms that the U.S. has. Most of them are in this area just because it's more efficient to do that way. It would make sense to put one of these farms in an area that doesn't get much sunlight. So the importance of this, 2021, the U.S. energy need was 3,806 terawatt hours, and the currently petroleum is the highest usage, whereas renewable is at 11% and petroleum is at 37%. As time goes on, it would be great to see renewable energy kind of go up here and have the use of renewable energies kind of subside so we can move away from these fossil fuels and have a better future. Um, so the cost of CSP is kind of a big talking point because again, like I said in my part one, it is a little bit of a newer thing to have these giant plants and commercialize it. So currently the cost is 9,091 per kilowatt, which is pretty expensive to install systems. Um, the other part of it is actually pretty expensive to maintain too because the energy storage system devices are has to be quite large and manufactured in such a way because to be able to handle all the heat that these devices put off provides or presents a problem. Um, because like I mentioned earlier, I think the one had a 1500 degrees Celsius output of heat on average. So the storage system has to be able to not directly take that heat, but just heat's there, so it has to be able to withstand some of that. And again, larger systems would equate to larger storage systems. So systems get pretty expensive pretty fast. Yeah, so in conclusion, CSP is kind of an interesting form of solar power. It can be beneficial, and I learned a lot on it. But again, it's pretty expensive currently. So I think that hopefully in the future that this price can come down between the installs as well as the storage systems. Um, you know, technology is always advancing, so I think that maybe in 10, 15 years this might be more of a viable energy option that more people around the country can utilize and hopefully bring that percentage of renewable energy use in the U.S.